When I was 13 years old, I wanted to build a swimming pool in my backyard, and so I spent the entire day digging a hole in the ground, and after I filled it up with water, I decided I needed a test dummy. I chased my pet rabbit around for 10 minutes before I finally got a hold of it and threw it into the pool, before realizing it couldn't swim, and so I just watched it as it slowly drowned. Anyways, apparently there are even more brutal construction deaths out there. Most painful construction deaths ever by a talking hat.
Watch your step. Across the United States are large industrial iron foundries that use molten iron to produce things like engine blocks, frames, and structural components for cars and buildings. At the Caterpillar Mapleton Foundry in Illinois, molten iron is melted at nearly 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit, a heat hotter than lava and hot enough to obliterate human flesh in an instant. For the workers at this factory, the foundry floor is a place where one wrong step means certain doom. So it's of utmost importance that each crew member moves with caution 100% of the time. On June 2nd, a 39-year-old man would be working his 5th day at his new job. He was tasked with retrieving a sample of molten iron for testing.
Bro, how are you gonna give a noob who has only spent 5 days on the job the task of retrieving a molten iron sample? The molten iron sample is hotter than lava. Bro, he's only been here for 5 days. He's 39 years old as well.
He spun down a giant metal wheel that caused the molten iron to pour out of the vat. Afterwards, he leaned over the boiling hot iron. He got close, like really, really close. And then liquid molten iron popped and exploded all over his face. I'm kidding. He successfully retrieved his sample of iron and returned back to his manager. Unluckily, however, he'd somehow slip on the stage and partially fall back into the molten vat of iron.
Okay, honestly, I wish he wasn't kidding before. This would have been so much better if a tiny little molten bubble just popped in his face. But instead, he falls into the entire bucket of molten lava. That would be an insane jacuzzi. Like, you wouldn't even need heating for it.
He tried to escape, but it was impossible. Half of his body was in, half of it was out. And before you know it, in an instant, he was consumed by the roaring orange abyss. Witnesses described what happened as beyond comprehension. He passed away instantly, but not all of him was consumed. Part of his body remained on the steel deck for the coroner to retrieve. Emergency crews rushed in, but it was already way too late. There was no saving him.
Bro, why was my mouth was starting to like salivate and water a little bit. Why was I salivating at the thought of, okay, bro, what am I mean, to be honest, this does look, I mean, okay, I wouldn't eat it, but I mean, maybe it's just because it's the morning. I'm just like a little bit hungry. I haven't had breakfast yet. But I mean, goddamn, I mean, I feel bad for the other workers that had to work at like this plant. Imagine seeing your dead coworker just like you can't even cross over this, or are you meant to cross over this? What if this walkway was the only way to like escape, like get out of like the work area? So no one could leave work and go back home to their family unless they like stepped over the dead body. And so I assume some people would have just, you know, just camped it out at work, just slept there overnight. Like, they only knew him for 5 days. He was only here for 5 days. His 5th day, he just dies. But I mean, I don't mean to like, you know, be mean or like stereotype, but let's just think about the facts. Okay, so he's 39 years old. He's come into a new job at this factory. And so based on this information, my gut feeling says perhaps he was potentially fired from his previous job at 39 years old. He was fired. And maybe beforehand he was like, you know, repeatedly fired from jobs. He has to find new jobs at like 39, 40, 50 years old, 60 years old. And perhaps the reason why he kept getting fired was because, you know, he keeps on making these sort of stupid mistakes. And so this was sort of bound to happen. But like, bro, if you know that you always make like dumb mistakes, why would you work in such a dangerous like factory?
The foundry quickly shut down, investigations were launched, and then questions arose. How could a man with so little training be placed so close to one of the most dangerous areas of the factory?
Yeah, exactly.
It was literally his 5th day on the job. For his colleagues, it was not the first time they'd seen such horror. Just a year earlier, another worker had passed away at the same plant after a similar fall. And now, yet again, a worker's life had been cut short in the most violent way imaginable. In factories like these, safety isn't just a guideline, it's survival. When molten metal waits beneath your feet, there's no second chance. One misstep and you're gone in an instant.
Wait, so the exact same incident had occurred a year prior and the factory did nothing about it? No new safety implementation? Someone fell into a lava thing as well? And died the exact same way into the exact same lava bucket? Surely after this one, the factory would have like, you know, gone back and like sort of reconsidered. Like maybe there is something wrong with our factory floor. Maybe it's like a little bit too hazardous. But instead they do nothing and the exact same thing happens a year later. Great. Brilliant. Brilliant. Brilliant.
The cable incident. It was just after noon at the Whitworth sawmill in East Texas. The air was thick with the grind of machines, the smell of fresh-cut pine, and the heat of men working hard to keep the mill alive. But inside, 4 men were locked in a struggle with a jammed wood chip machine. To free it, they turned to the heavy steel cable that wound its way around the gears. They pulled, adjusted, and worked the line, hoping to break the machine loose. And then, in an instant, disaster struck. After working the cable for what felt like forever, they had stretched it out to the point that it extended itself like a bow and tightened back on one of the men. Upon pulling the cable and stretching it back out again to free the man, it finally snapped. The stored energy released with the speed of a bullet and the force of a guillotine. It whipped across the work area with deadly precision, striking all 5 men at once. The impact was catastrophic. 4 of the 5 were decapitated instantly. The 5th man got lucky. He was thrown away to the side, and the bones in his leg got shattered, but thankfully, his life was spared.
Bro, why would you just not think of just turning the machine off before you do anything like this? Like, isn't it common sense? Like, if you're gonna pull stuff, tug stuff with a live wood chopping machine, shouldn't you just turn it off before you do anything weird? Like, that goes with all things in life, like even household appliances. If you're gonna do something weird with the toaster, just turn it off before you do anything weird with it. Like, if you're gonna frick the toaster, just turn it off. Or if you're gonna, like, do something with a blender, like, especially a blender, like a smoothie blender. If you're gonna stick your dingling in your blender, like, just turn it off before you do it, like, just in case it accidentally chops your wiener off. So basically, they made a, what is the weapon? The thing in Cyberpunk. Oh, it's the monowires, the Cyberpunk monowire. So they managed to make the Cyberpunk monowires before Cyberpunk even released in 2020. So I assume this happened before 2020.
For the men who witnessed it, the scene was indescribable. One moment, their co-workers were fighting with some stupid jammed machine. The next second, the floor was silent and each of their bodies stood upright in their same positions with a crucial detail missing. The ground was littered with helmets, sawdust, and bodies. When EMTs arrived at the scene, they were obviously only able to save the man with the injured leg.
I mean, maybe you could have, tried some duct tape. I mean, you could have tried duct taping the other bodies together, maybe. I mean, it's a long shot, but it could have worked, maybe, like, if you were fast enough.
The sleeve incident. In a cavernous factory in Russia, cameras were quietly watching a scene that would later horrify the world. On the floor stood a massive horizontal lathe.
But you want to know what else is massive?
The machine was giant, and its steel cylinder was rotating with an unstoppable force. It was a machine built to carve through metal itself. A Russian man tasked with running the machinery froze upon seeing it. For a couple of moments, he would just squint deeply at the machine, closely inspecting it. His posture was casual, and then from casual, it grew curious. Although it's not entirely clear what it was, the man noticed something wrong with the machine, but after inspecting it, he went about his business. And then he came back because his curiosity got the best of him. Something was obviously wrong with the machine, so he went in for another look. It was then that he realized that he had been inspecting the wrong thing all along. His gaze shifted from the machine to the ceiling above it, and he was astonished with what he saw. He was right. There was a bit of a leak dripping down from the ceiling onto the machine. A sigh of relief came from the man as he became relieved that he had figured out the issue. As he began leaving to retrieve items to fix the leak, he'd quickly realize another, more concerning issue. His sleeve was stuck. And just like that, in a heartbeat, everything changed. The man was yanked into the spinning machine. His body slammed between the cylinder and the base, whipping around with such force that he looked like a rag doll in the grip of a hurricane. The lathe spun faster and faster. First his shoes would fly off, then pieces of his flesh, then chunks, then his limbs. And before you knew it, he was turned into a mist. The camera captured it all. There was no time for rescue or hope of survival.
Wait, this was filmed on camera as well? They got it on security camera? Bro, okay, I guarantee I know where this was uploaded. What year was this? I guarantee I know what website this was uploaded to. But that is insane. Was this guy even working at the factory? He was just some random Russian guy that was drinking coffee, just walked by and he found some issue with it. How would you even let yourself get that close to a spinning machine like that? Were there no safety precautions? Was this not fenced off? Was this open to the public? To the public members of the public in Russia just walk past this machine? I think they said a Russian man tasked with running the machinery saw it and froze. And so if this guy had been running the machine for the past 2 years at his job, wouldn't he fully understand the dangers of this machine? Like, he knows all the specs of this machine. He knows the RPM. He knows the pounds of force. Yet he allows himself to get so close to it as if it's like some sort of chicken rotisserie. I would only get so close to a spinning thing if it was this, like a chicken. I wouldn't even allow myself to get within 10 meters of this machine.
Moments later, another worker in full protective gear entered from the side. He froze at the sight he saw. red trails, shredded remains, and a stained room. He lifted his hands in complete frustration, then dropped them in despair. The unfiltered camera footage spread across the internet, shocking millions before being digitally wiped away.
Wait, this happened in 2024, 2025? How was the factory allowing the camera footage of this to spread around? And why would people want to watch it? That is disgusting. I will admit I am a little bit curious, but if you think about it, it's a man that just gets killed from like a rotisserie chicken spinning thing. That would be like beyond traumatizing.
Safety experts pointed out the obvious in this case. Don't wear loose clothing around machines like these, and always keep a safe distance between them. The roller incident. It was just after noon at a factory in the Saint Laurent borough of Montreal. The facility specialized in recycling plastic. Massive machines churned endlessly, crushing and shaping materials with unstoppable force. For workers, the rhythm of the rollers was just another part of the day. Clock in, crush and churn, go to sleep, repeat. Except for this day. On August 8th, 2016, at around 12:15 p.m., a 56-year-old employee noticed a piece of plastic jammed in the roller machine. Determined to keep the line and the rhythm of his job moving, he climbed up a ladder and reached in to pull it free. As you could guess, while trying to perform this extremely dangerous task, the rollers would pinch his finger. He'd scream in pain and try to yank it out, but in a split second, his hand was caught and effectively crushed. Unfortunately, that wouldn't even be the worst part. The rollers dragged him in, pulling his body into the unforgiving gear-crushing machine. First his hand was sucked in, then his arm, then his head, and then his chest. His torso became wedged into the entry space of 12 centimeters before co-workers rushed to stop the machine. But by the time it halted, his body sat deeply jammed in between a space no bigger than a clenched fist.
Jesus Christ, they turned him into a pancake and they didn't even add ice cream. Was it really worth it? I guess he had OCD, obsession, I didn't even know what that stands for, but I guess he wanted everything to be so neat and perfect that he had to get rid of this tiny little plastic bottle. This plastic bottle was probably like only causing a, I don't know, like 5% inefficiency to the line, but I guess being so underpaid in this factory job, he got so hungry after like not being able to eat that much food that he decided to turn himself into a pancake to satisfy his hunger. That is insane. But I mean, he was 56 years old. Bro, what is the thought process behind this? If something looks dangerous, sounds dangerous, seems dangerous, it most likely is dangerous. So why would you risk your entire life for a stupid plastic bottle?
But by the time it halted, his body sat deeply jammed in between a space no bigger than a clenched fist. Insanely enough, however, he was actually pulled out of the machine alive.
Whoa. He was alive? Nah. No, okay, that is horrible. He should have died. He actually should have died. So that means he would have suffered such a slow, painful death. Wait, a fist. This is my fist. So his head was crushed in between this, his brain was flattened in between this, and he was still alive? I feel like at that point, if you retrieve a body out of that sort of like flattened space, I feel like it may or may not be a good idea to just put them out of their misery.
Despite his body being crushed and broken beyond repair, emergency responders rushed him to the hospital in critical condition, but there really wasn't much doctors could do. The man was literally flattened, so sadly, he succumbed to his injuries shortly after. Behind every phone, car, or laptop you use, there is a person. A person who spends anywhere from 8 to 16 hours a day working tirelessly in a factory full of dangerous equipment to grant you these luxuries you have. Life is delicate and quick. It can be here 1 second and gone the next. So, no matter how small, always be grateful for the good you have.
Okay, so I guess that was the moral of the story. That is the moral of the story. So the reason why it's important to learn about these brutal construction deaths is so that we are more grateful for our electronic devices. I'm grateful that I have access to an iPhone. This guy over here lost his life producing my iPhone. Okay, I feel extremely guilty about that. So should I not own any like devices anymore? Because of this incident, I'm never gonna drink out of a plastic bottle ever again. I'm only gonna drink out of glass bottles.